Welcome to Ask a Bisexual, a show aimed at busting some of the myths about bisexual women. Joining me today are Tara Scott, reviewer at the Lesbian Review, and Rae D Magdon, author extraordinaire of like 6 billion books and 20 million short stories, or something equally epic. Thank you both for joining me today.
Hello, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Let's talk about your bisexual story. And this episode is titled Becoming the Hero of My Bisexual Story. And the reason I titled it that is because I think that bisexual women get a bad rep from both the heterosexual kind of more mainstream market and lesbians who can be a little mean about it.
I don't know, but I kind of like the idea of us having origin stories. This is great.
It's like a superhero. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so let's talk about your origin stories. How did you guys come to terms with being bisexual, and have you come to terms with it? Or are you still battling with it?
Well, I feel like that question was a softball for me. I've been attracted to women basically my whole life. When I was 5, I wanted to both be the Disney princess and marry the Disney princess, although I was in a very conservative religious household, so I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know gay people. My parents certainly didn't talk about it, so I had to kind of figure that out for myself. When I turned 12, puberty kind of hit with a vengeance, and I started really noticing women, and that was really difficult for me because of my religious upbringing. So I definitely had some mental health struggles. I started by identifying as bisexual because I really didn't want to admit that I was a lesbian. I thought that would be worse somehow, because then there was no chance that I would end up in a heterosexual relationship and, please my parents. But eventually I decided to identify as a lesbian because I realized I wasn't really attracted to men. At the time I met my partner, we met when I was really, really young, 14, so we've been together over 10 years. Tori came out as a trans man in my early 20s, and at the time I was identifying as a lesbian, and when he came out, I really had to examine myself and think about whether I wanted to stay in the relationship, about whether it was healthy for me, and when I decided that yes, I really love this person, I love Tori, I want to stay in our marriage, I had to rethink my label. I had to rethink, well, am I going to continue to identify as a lesbian? And the answer I came to was no. Because when I was a teenager, my parents found out that I was attracted to women and I was put in conversion therapy. So I had to go sit in church. Fortunately, there's no physical component, but I had to go sit and listen to people tell me these stories about lesbians who ended up in relationships with men, and the idea was, well, you too can be in a heterosexual relationship. You don't have to be a lesbian. And I did not want my relationship with my husband to be weaponized against other lesbians. I didn't feel comfortable with that. So I changed my label. I decided, well, I'm going to identify as bisexual. I'm not really attracted to other men. I'm only attracted to this one specific trans man because of our journey together from childhood. And I'm not interested in other men, cis or trans. Nonetheless, I decided I was going to identify as bisexual because I wanted to respect my partner's identity. And it was difficult. I felt like I was losing something. I'm still pretty much exclusively attracted to women, but I think it was the right decision. And since then, I've tried to carve a home for myself in the bisexual community. I've tried to find joy in it, find pride in it, connect with other bisexual people, and make a home for myself because some parts of the label don't feel very true to my internal experience, but I've met lots of really awesome people. I think it's expanded my writing. I write more about trans characters and bisexual characters than I ever would if I had not gone on this journey of self-discovery and, adapted to fit my situation. So there have been some really good things that have come out of my new label. These days, I'm a lot prouder to say that I'm bisexual than I used to be.
From what I can tell, you spent your first 10, whatever it was, years battling with your own internal sexuality and coming to terms with being a lesbian.
I realized I liked girls at age 12. Well, before that I did too, but I didn't know what it was. So age 12, I was confused for about 2 years. I identified as bisexual when I was about 14 to my friends. I wasn't out to my family yet. And then at about 16, I decided, nope, I'm a lesbian. And then until I was about 23, 24, I identified exclusively as a lesbian, and that felt like a very comfortable label for me. It felt accurate. But I also, these days, I'm using the label queer because I feel like it is a bit more applicable to my situation, the fact that I'm with a specific person that I love very much. It invites more questions. The word queer invites more questions. They ask, well, what do you mean by that? And then I can explain, well, I'm pretty much exclusively attracted to women, but I have a male partner that we grew up together. We're childhood loves, so that's what happened. And the only problem is that sometimes if I use bisexual, cisgender men take it as an invitation. Like they think that my sexual identity is like a sexual invitation, and that's such bullshit. But lately I've been trying to like reclaim the word bisexual for myself and be like, no, it's my identity. It's who I am. There's nothing promiscuous about it. There's nothing shameful about it. It's not for men. My identity is for me. So yeah, so I identify as bisexual and as queer, and I've been trying to put that in my writing to make it more accessible to people who might not just identify as lesbians, kind of widening the lesfic circle to include different kinds of people.
I think that's kind of the cool thing about the label bisexual too, because, and I can talk about this when I talk about my own origin story. Sorry, I kind of like the idea of being a bisexual
What's your superhero story? Tell us your superhero story.
I will get there. But the thing that I find interesting is that it really means, or it can mean so many things. And that's the thing that I really love about it, is that it can mean that you're equally attracted to men and women, or it can mean that you're attracted to anyone. Like, it can actually overlap with pansexuality quite a lot. Or it can mean that you are primarily attracted to one gender and there is one person in the other one, and it can still be your label if you want it to be. Like, I love how inclusive it is.
It really is, and it makes me sad when people say, well, can I really identify as bisexual if, and it's like, anyone can identify as bisexual as long as you're attracted to more than one gender.
My own personal philosophy on labels is it's up to the individual, not up to somebody to label other people.
Yeah, gatekeepers can go.
So, Tara, speak,
Okay.
woman.
So, my story has some similarities to Rae's, but also some pretty big differences. I also grew up in a deeply religious family. When I was in high school, we were in the Baptist church, and in fact, my parents are still in the Baptist church. And I was attracted to enough boys, not very many of them, but enough that I was able to say, oh, okay, I'm straight. This is fine. I'm straight. See, I'm attracted to this boy over here, and then this one over here. This will be great. Because I think I just kind of instinctually knew that, first of all, it wouldn't have been okay with anybody at the church. And second of all, that included my parents. And while I believe they still would have loved me, it would have been incredibly difficult. And I think I was just afraid that I would have lost my family, which when you're that young is a difficult and scary thing. So I compartmentalized all of my attraction to girls and women, which when I look back is actually most of the attraction that I had, because I can look back and it's like, oh, that's why I wanted to watch that movie so many times, because that actress was in it. Or, oh, that's why I wanted to take all those classes with that one teacher, because I was attracted to her. And I ended up marrying a man who is wonderful and has been incredibly supportive, and in fact was the one who noticed about 7 years ago when I actually first discovered lesfic. He was like, hey, you're reading a lot of lesbian romances. Do you think that maybe you're bisexual? Because if you are, that is okay, because you're not going to go to hell for that. And I was actually still involved in the church at that point, so having someone tell me that it was okay and that I wasn't going to go to hell was pretty important to me. And it gave me the permission to actually kind of unlock that box and to examine a part of myself that I always just looked to, like, just to the side. Like, I could see it out of the corner of my eye. It was always there, but I would never look directly at it. And it was amazing because he was there every step of the way and always encouraged me to look directly at it and to think about what it meant. both for me and for us as a couple. He really wanted me to embrace it. And then it was kind of scary and lonely at first, but not too long after that, probably about a year or so, I sent a tweet to a lesbian book reviewer and said, hey, you should review this book. And it was Sheena, and she said, do it yourself. And so that was kind of how I got hooked in with the lesbian review. And the amazing thing that happened there was that I joined a community of women who love and are attracted to other women. And that made it a lot easier for my own journey of personal acceptance, because even though none of them were like here locally, there is something powerful about friendships no matter where the people are located. And that really allowed me to kind of like talk through a lot of it. It gave me people to talk to, including Sheena and some other close friends, so that it got a lot easier. And now the label feels pretty comfortable. I still feel like queer is more comfortable, because I think there are some people who again wonder, well, but you're married to a man, like how can you even? It's like, well, I can call myself whatever I want to call myself, and he and I know what our marriage is all about, and it's not really anybody else's business. Except all you people listening, we're doing this for you.
Your origin stories, your superhero origin stories, pretty much go to prove why I wanted to do this podcast. So my goal with this podcast is to help people realize that there's a lot more to bisexual women than just women who can't decide or who, you know, can't get enough sex, because these seem to be very prevalent myths about bisexual women. Bisexual women are also not villains, and they're not out to marry a man and break the girl's heart ultimately. To end this off, I just want to do some reader questions quickly. So Nita asks, I've often heard it say that bisexuals can't decide. And then Julie responds with, yes, that we can't decide or that we're confused about our sexuality. Have you guys heard this?
Yeah.
I've certainly heard it. I don't think it's accurate to my experience. I mean, I don't know what is more of a powerful decision than choosing to stay with someone through transition. I mean, that seems like a pretty decisive attitude to me. And I'm happy with that decision. I mean, I had to give something up, but what I gained was so much greater. And I certainly don't think choosing to stay with my partner means that I can't decide something. Like, I know who I'm attracted to. I know that I'm attracted to women. That didn't go anywhere. And I know that bisexual women, lots of us are very confident in who we are. We're not just mixed up or anything. We're just trying to live our lives. And I mean, think of it this way. There's so many women on the planet. Like, there's butch women, there's androgynous women, there's femme women, there's curvy women, there's thin women, there's, you know, women of all different kinds, women of different ages. And if you're going to be attracted to more than one type of women, is it really inconceivable to you that you couldn't be attracted to more than one gender?
That's a fair point, absolutely. Okay, so Erin asks, prior to realizing you were bisexual, did you think you were predominantly straight or lesbian? Was it a gradual realization or was it sudden? And how much of the personal journey have you shared with your loved ones?
I think I covered most of it in my sharing my story, except for the part about how much I've shared. I would say at this point, I've shared it with just about everybody. And if I haven't like sat my parents and had a talk with them or anything like that, I also don't feel like I need to, because, so first of all, we live on like opposite ends of the country. So a lot of how we engage with each other is over Facebook, and like I'm pretty out. So I could have a conversation with him, but at this point it feels kind of anticlimactic, almost like a, hey, so just checking, like, you know this, right? Like, you know this thing that I'm pretty open with already, and other people tag me in things about all the time. Yes. So I don't know. It just feels kind of silly. So at this point, I feel like if anybody doesn't know, it's because they don't want to know.
Everybody in my life knows. My entire family knows. All of my friends are queer and they know. It's certainly not a secret. I mean, I had to come out as a lesbian to everyone in the first place, and then I came out as bisexual to everybody. So, yeah, my story is definitely not a secret, and I'm really open about it on my blog because I want to help other people who are trying to figure themselves out. So I've told this story a lot online.
Thank you both for joining me today. That is the end of episode 1 of Ask Bisexual. I'm Sheena. I've been joined today by Tara Scott and Rae D Magdon. Bye!
Bye!
Bye.